Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the gallery. I definitely remember this like it was yesterday because I've never bought an art before. It's just one of those things you just didn't really do. I bought crypto kitties, but I've never bought an art before, and I didn't really know how to buy art. And this was like the most expensive thing that I've ever purchased in my to this day still is the most expensive thing that I've ever purchased in my entire life. Um, but we're three kids effectively in like Adidas sweatpants and like no fashion sense at all. Walking into this gallery and everyone's in like suits and things, and like we had done a lot of research because we really wanted this piece called Morons, and we can go into why, but a big reason was it made fun of the traditional auction houses, and we kind of wanted to take that and make it a step further because we knew what we were also making fun of. And so we walked into the gallery and we're like, we want this. We'll take one of these, please. And they're like, oh, okay. And we're like, how do we get this?
Welcome back to Blockster. We have the absolute pleasure to interview Anthony today, but he's also known as Banksy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You have been interviewed on multiple occasions and you have shared the entire story around burning a Banksy, but I really want to dive a bit deeper into the emotions that you experienced throughout this entire journey. But could you just give me the factual details of the story to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. No, you're right. No one really asked me a lot of that question, so I am very excited. But for those of you who don't know, my name is Banksy. My real name is Anthony. But I go by that name. About 4 years ago, I bought a Banksy art piece. I lit it on fire and sold it for what ended up being the highest price NFT sold at the time, and for all of 2021 was the highest priced NFT sold on OpenSea. And yeah, since then, working on a project called XION, where we raised 36 million to make crypto completely disappear.
And the piece of art that you bought is called Morons, and it has a deeper meaning for you.
Yeah.
But you were also saying that when you purchased the art, you went to an art gallery and you felt like you were out of place because you are the typical Web3 native, and you went there with two of your friends. So could you just tell me a bit more about how did you feel at that time, and also a bit more about that feeling of actually burning an artwork that was quite valuable at the time?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the gallery. I definitely remember this like it was yesterday because I've never bought an art before. It's just one of those things you just didn't really do. I bought crypto kitties, but I've never bought an art before, and I didn't really know how to buy art. And this was like the most expensive thing that I've ever purchased in my to this day still is the most expensive thing that I've ever purchased in my entire life. But we're three kids effectively in like Adidas sweatpants and like no fashion sense at all. Walking into this gallery and everyone's in like suits and things, and like we had done a lot of research because we really wanted this piece called Morons, and we can go into why, but a big reason was it made fun of the traditional auction houses, and we kind of wanted to take that and make it a step further because we knew what we were also making fun of. And so we walked into the gallery and we're like, we want this. We'll take one of these, please. And they're like, oh, okay. And we're like, how do we get this? Because no one knew, and it's just like, I don't know. How do you want to pay? And they're like, I don't. Do we pay in cash? And they're like, you can send us a wire. And we're like, oh, okay, that's probably a lot easier than walking in with $80,000 in a briefcase that's like handcuffed to me. Had no idea what we were doing. Genuinely had no idea what we were doing. And we literally kept it in one of our apartments, not even like hanging, just like still wrapped up. We were petrified of anything touching this thing for probably like 3 months while we set this thing up. And I remember the day of we were taking an Uber, and there's like this great photo of my friend carrying the painting over his head, as we're like going to get it photographed and things like that. And it was just so bad. It was just so bad. But you know, I actually do remember, and I think it's a, it's something that I never really talked about. But I remember I had a speech that I had written, um, and I didn't know what I was gonna like. I didn't memorize it at all, but I knew that I needed to memorize it because it just would have looked terrible, like physically or aesthetically, I should say. And I think what really went through my head, like I just remember these one line effectively of just like, I think one moment, it's just one moment that kind of changes your life, and I just remembered that very, very vividly, before I did everything, and I had a speech, and I knew it wasn't going to be very well. Like I probably wrote it like 20 minutes before, and I was like trying to memorize it. Like there were people that I wanted to thank, things that I wanted to say, and I remember just thinking in that moment of just like, there's always one moment that changes your life, and obviously very true, but I didn't think to the extent that it would be. And so I remember standing there as the Banksy's lit it on fire. And if anyone's seen the video, it took like 15 minutes because for some reason these things are difficult to light on fire. But eventually, like, I don't know why. I really don't know why I stayed there. Like, it was not catching on fire whatsoever, and I'm just like, no, this needs to work. Like, this literally needs to work. And we got lucky where it just eventually caught, and I remember feeling so relieved that it finally caught, because that was so nerve-wracking.
What did your parents say at the time? Did you did they support you, like even keeping the
God, no.
artwork?
No, God, no. I remember, like, some of the family members that I had told, like, outside of my direct family, like, my extended family I told because I was very afraid of my parents. But I remember, like, everyone was like, are you fucking stupid? Obviously. Um, and I remember we knew that we were gonna get, we were working with PR, and we understood that, like, I think we gave it was Forbes, Fortune, someone like that. We gave them exclusive for, like, that first. So we knew as soon as it happened, there would be an exclusive. The embargo was lifted, like, I think it was, like, 8 p.m. And I remember, like, 5 minutes before, I call my mom, and I'm just like, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm about to light an art piece on fire, and it's going to be picked up in the news, and you're probably going to see it. I'm okay. I looked it up. It's legal. Lied. I don't know. And I'm like, love you. Bye. I just hung up.
Did she say anything?
Well, I
Did
hung
she?
up. I just literally hung up.
Oh,
I
she
just,
did.
like, love you.
Oh my
Bye.
days.
I come back to, like, 30 missed calls. I was like, it's cost
Oh,
of
what
doing
did she say
business, I
after it?
guess.
Was she happy that you managed to make
No,
some
she
money
called me
out
a
of it?
fucking idiot for like 30 minutes straight. I was just like, just look at
Oh,
the article. She's like, no, this is great. Why don't you call me about these things? Why don't you tell me? I would have been supportive. I'm like, you're yelling at me right now. You clearly would not have been.
wow, that's a very interesting story. Thanks for sharing all those. And you attended DAS, which happened literally a few days ago. So could you just tell me a bit more about it and what was the temperature check this year?
Yeah. It was a bright, 48 degrees outside. Very nice. Sorry, you're in England. No, I'm kidding. It was nice. I think that it was very funny. I think there was such a difference in days. Like the first day, it was a little smaller than I had anticipated. But then I think it was interesting because the last day you had Sailor and Trump there, and it was very, very interesting. And you could feel the difference in vibes, and it was very, very interesting. I think based in New York, so it was very easy for me to get here. I met a lot of great people that I've been dying to meet for quite some time. Especially as we've been the first L1 to be Title II MiCA compliant. It's been, a very big opening. We were 2 weeks ago in the New York Stock Exchange kind of speaking on this, and I think this week we are as well kind of talking even more. But the amount of institutional interest that we've seen over these last 2 weeks has been second to none. So DAS worked very well with the timing, and I think especially as you kind of have the, everything with the tariffs kind of coming and the uncertainty coming to clarity, it's a very nice, I think it was a very nice conference, especially as institutions, just to get the temperature check and, it feeling pretty good.
I would really want us to dig deeper into the micro compliant part, but I feel like we have to first talk about what you guys do and what's your blockchain and how that differentiate. But it's interesting because at the time, I mean 5 years ago, you started born as a project, so you were not planning to build a blockchain, but the reason that you did it is because you encounter certain challenges across the way. And that's a very interesting story, because normally blockchains, or most of the founders build blockchains and try after it to find a project market fit, while your story sounds slightly different. You approached it from, I want to build a project, I want to build, yeah, something on the blockchain, but the blockchains are not working for me. So can you just explain that and tell me a bit more about this entire transition from a project to actually a blockchain?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of it goes back to the burn Banksy, really, which was, it was, even at the time, a nightmare, you know, to not only to actually do it, but to, you know, and even like I've been building in this industry. I've been in this industry since 2016, and we had to go through a company called Superfarm effectively to do the minting. Even though I was a highly technical person, and had been building in the industry, it was just terrible experience, especially like with OpenSea at the time. Really miserable. And unfortunately, like that aspect hasn't changed. But the real important issue is like, you know, even when we were doing the auction, my parents couldn't see what I was doing. They couldn't engage in what I was doing. Like not that they could afford it, but like, you know, it was something along the lines of like, I want people that I know to see what I'm doing and understand what I'm doing. You know, and so to engage with the NFT at the time, you would have had to, if you weren't already in crypto and had enough Ethereum, you would have had to probably go to Coinbase, probably onboard KYC, and then download MetaMask. And then I have to tell you what MetaMask is, write down your seed phrase, bridge from Coinbase to MetaMask, and then put that, like, it's just, no. The answer is no, that's not happening. And we saw that very, very early. And we understood the ethos of crypto in my mind, especially for the NFT part specifically, was we're bringing art on chain, and being crypto, you're kind of global as a default. And the benefit there is like you can find this next Picasso in Africa or in India, especially as we start to be a global society. And we believed in that. But if no one can actually use it, then that ethos is pointless. And then given, you know, there were a lot of other reasons, but Ethereum was expensive, it was slow, it still is. And so we went to this brand new chain at the time called Solana, and we built the first NFT standard, the first NFT collection standard, over with Solana, and built the first fully decentralized NFT marketplace on Solana. Had 30,000 monthly active users, doing NFT drops with like Afrojack and like some of the Sopranos team. But like you look at, we ran into the same issues, right? Either it was faster, it was cheaper, and we were doing no code, so like if you could upload and everything like that. So we tried to fix it from that side, but there was still this user side that really, really wasn't getting addressed. And the Venn diagram of people who liked The Sopranos and then had a Phantom wallet with Solana in it was really, really small. And then as a product, you're kind of this marketing engine for Phantom, for Solana, and like the huge value capture funnel. And even if you wanted to do anything, there's like 8 companies in the line that you got to work with in order to just get some basic functionality done. And so unfortunately, it was like one of these times where we understood that this isn't an application issue, this is an infrastructure issue. And so in the greatest case of scope creep you've ever seen, we built XION. And the entire North Star of XION was, we want to make crypto completely disappear. We believe in the ethos of crypto, but it is completely unusable for someone who doesn't want to go. And the solution is not to try to make education easier. It's to meet people where they are and make a fully Web2 experience with the benefits of Web3.
Before we continue into that storyline and talk about XION, I really would love to hear your thoughts on how blockchains will continue to develop. So for a very long time, I believe that we'll see a very strong networking effect and we'll see a massive consolidation at the top. But after listening to your story and doing a bit more research, and I actually started building this thesis probably around 3 months ago, but this is just one more reason that I believe in it. I think that a lot of small projects will start building their own blockchains. So they will deploy on like XION or Base or Solana, and as soon as they grow and become big enough, they'll then say, why the hell am I giving transaction fees to these guys when I can essentially incentivize my own products, or like people that are collaborating with me to become also validators, incentivize people to stake my token and build my own chain.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that you think about and worry about as an L1?
I think that's a great question. I think a lot of it will be pretty circular. And I think the best example to look at that is data storage, where you can use AWS and you're like, why am I paying AWS? Or you can go bare metal, and there's a lot of security reasons and monetary reasons to go bare metal, but there's also scaling reasons of AWS, right? And you do kind of notice this pretty cyclical nature where Google is not using AWS, right? But most startups are, and I think that's just the nature of things. I think that you're probably going to see, I don't think that there's going to be much consolidation at the top, because I think that Ethereum could have been winner take all, but it was disproven by Solana. And there is an inherent cannibalistic nature of the industry being a public goods industry, that block space is a commodity, and definitionally it will be commoditized, which effectively insinuates that there won't really be a winner-take-all in that kind of category, at least yet. I think we have 20 years to see that kind of play out, very similarly we did with the early internet. But what I do think is you're going to see specialization. I do think that you're going to see the app chain thesis play out. And I do think that there are going to be places which is like, if I want to focus on DeFi, I'm going to go here. If I want to focus on consumer, I'm going to go to XION. If I want to work with Web2 brands, I'm going to go with XION. If I want to get Web2 clients, I'm going to go to XION. But if I want to get like institutional, like if I want to get JP Morgan to be in my liquidity pool, I'm going to go to Injective or Berachain or Plume, right? Like or RWAs, right? Like you're seeing this aspect where in 2019, you saw a difference in kind of consensus mechanisms, right? You saw Solana, you saw Neo, you saw Proof of History, you saw Cosmos. And I think now what you're seeing is this, hey, great, we've hyper-optimized block times. That's not our problem anymore. There's no users here. And so now it's an RWA chain, a consumer chain, a DeFi chain. And you're beginning to see this maturization of the industry kind of come to fruition as distribution becomes more and more readily available and popular.
Thanks for explaining that. I really enjoyed that take. Can you tell me a bit more about XION? And I know that one of the main features is chain abstraction. So could you elaborate further on this and explain how do you manage to achieve it? And I'm really interested to know, how do you manage to deal with the gas fees issue? Because it's one of the most annoying things for me when I open a wallet and then someone sends me money on one of the L2s, and then I actually don't have Ethereum to then transfer this money to another account, so I need to buy some Ethereum before I actually do it, which is quite annoying sometimes.
Yes. Yes, I've been there a lot. Especially when you bridge too much over and you're like, crap.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'd love to hear how do you guys manage to prevent that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest way that we do that is we are the first and only walletless L1. So it's hard to think about us in terms of wallets, and it's going to be a new concept that a lot of people are going to have to get used to. But think of everything is a smart contract account, not an externally owned account. And so by kind of nature, everything is built into the protocol level of chain abstraction. And if you want to interact with another chain, it looks more like, are you familiar with IBC? Or is it?
Yeah.
So it looks a lot like interchain accounts, where you have an account on one, an account on the other, and you're mirroring it across each other. And I think that when we look back in 5 years, wallets are going to be the major roadblock of this entire industry. And we're going to look back and we're going to say, why were we using that?
And what about the security of it? Because for some reason, I love the fact that I have my own wallet because I have my seed phrase and I'm fully responsible for it. And if I lose it, then I lose all of my money. But I kind of like the idea of having full control and autonomy over my funds.
Yep.
So could you, I don't fully understand the impact that having everything as a smart contract will have on your autonomy over your money, because I don't want to find myself I guess you get the question.
I do. I think it's something that, like, when you're a Web3 team building for Web2, that's one of the most important things, because you can't lose the ethos of this industry. But you're still building a spectrum, right, for a spectrum of people and a spectrum of users. Some people who want to log in with their Gmail, and some people who are like, I will never trust Gmail with my entire life. And building for both of those is very interesting. But the way that we do it is, effectively, you're allowed to have up to 256 different signing methods. So that could be Google, or that could also be your Ledger. And that could also be your Ledger plus your MetaMask plus your Phantom wallet. You could also rotate keys. So it's actually an interesting example of, it's actually more security, not less, to a point where you can use both your MetaMask or your Phantom wallet if you want to. Say, I don't want to use Gmail, I only want to use my MetaMask, I only want to use my Phantom wallet, I only want to use what I'm used to. If I want to use Passkey or something like that, great, I can add it. If I want to use my Ledger and I want to only interact with Ledger, absolutely can do that. And so don't think about it from the point of like, oh, well, this is actually being taken away. It's actually just completely additive.
Yeah. And I guess the next question is then, how do you overcome the challenge of fragmentation? Because it sounds like it's a really good interoperability solution, so you can essentially connect pretty much any of your cold wallets to XION. But can you just run me through that, like fragmentation and then interoperability, and how do they work together?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the end goal is to be able to, very similarly to how you just traverse the internet now, where you go from Google to YouTube to Facebook to whatever news you read, you don't have to choose what network you're on every time. You don't have to, it's like, oh, Google actually uses this database, so I have to completely change everything. Like, that cannot be the future of the way that we look at things. And I think that we want to provide a lot of flexibility as it comes to this, right? And you can think of this of having XION as like a home chain. You can think about it as XION being XION and using the products on XION. But we're actually completely interoperable, and we did a lot of chain abstraction work with like Solana, AVAX, Berachain's coming up soon, Polygon, Injective, where, the idea is you should not know what chain you're on. And we like that. Like, for us, we just want products to survive and to be able to be used. And so whether that's a product on Injective, whether that's a product on, Ethereum mainnet, it shouldn't matter. You could log in using our login methods and be using Ethereum, but you don't really need to know that.
And you're built on top of the Cosmos SDK, and you employ the Comet BFT.
Yep.
So could you tell me a bit more about it, and what was the thought process at the time? Because you're building on top of Solana early on, and then you transition to Cosmos, which has a slightly different approach. So can you just tell me why is that the case?
Sure. And I think that Cosmos is an interesting ecosystem because it isn't really an ecosystem, and I think a lot of people have this concept that it's like deploying on Cosmos, when really it's just a consensus mechanism, right? At the end of the day, and every Cosmos chain is its own chain. The only kind of, and they don't really affect each other, and I think this was best shown with the collapse of Terra not affecting anyone else. At the end of the day, it's literally just an SDK. I think there is a community around it. There is a lot of great, amazing technology such as IBC that's built on top of it. But the reason we chose Cosmos was because we wanted the independence that came with Cosmos. And a lot of people say that Cosmos is too decentralized, but I think that comes at the benefit of, you know, at some point, like, Terra was valued higher than Atom. And I think that you could probably see that a little bit now. And it's just a testament to how decentralized the Cosmos ecosystem is, and just an SDK at the end of the day.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on Cosmos, because I believe that it played an essential role when it comes to blockchain and infrastructure. But I think the main challenge that they are facing is to essentially extract fees back to the Cosmos ecosystem, because everyone is essentially deploying on their SDK.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's very difficult to create this community of projects that are building on top of Cosmos, because, as you said, it's fully decentralized, or as decentralized as it can be. But projects building on top of it are still identifying as their own entities, and they don't fully associate with the Cosmos. Really wanna hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of major token launches that you're seeing now at Cosmos. You look at, like, Nillion, Particle, Bear started on. I know they built the beacon, but they started on. So a lot of major people are on Cosmos, but they just won't align with them, and that's okay. They don't have to. I think the interesting thing about Cosmos is answering the question of decentralization in the same way that Ethereum is, but Ethereum started as, like, one thing and then branched out to a bunch of different app chains. Cosmos is a bunch of different app chains, and now it's struggling to find its core. And in the very similar way, they're running into the exact same problem of finding their core. And you can see that they're approaching the solution from the different ends of each other, but they're running into the problem at the exact same time. It's the same reason Atom is underperforming, is the same reason that Ethereum is underperforming. It's because they're struggling with the scalability that comes with the decisions that they've made.
Yeah, I really agree with it. And talking about your consensus mechanism, I read that it's proof of abstraction.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what that means, to be honest. So I would love for you to explain that to me.
Totally. It's very, it is quite a, it's quite a cool concept that we created, which was, we understand that as a chain, we want to keep, gas fees are extremely, extremely low. And the way that as a chain we win is on economies of scale. And it's by having a lot of users. And the only way to get a lot of users is abstraction. Right? And it is by having a solid experience that is frictionless and can onboard users. And so the participants in the network that naturally have the most users and the most gas fees effectively get rewarded by it. Right? And so kind of this circular loop of proof of abstraction to both incentivize kind of usage, but then using the network effects of that to then kind of feed back into the ecosystem and have this nice viral loop going.
Nice. And I feel like I want to take a step back now and talk about the projects that are building on top of you, because I feel like this conversation got slightly technical, so we don't want to lose the listeners and viewers. But in an interview, you were saying that NFTs were designed to democratize art, but the barrier to entry is so high, and you need to be a technical person, so they didn't really achieve their fundamental goal because it was so challenging for anyone to enter them, and only people within the Web3 ecosystem could actually have access to NFTs. So could you just tell me a bit more on how this has changed since the time you joined Web3?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the approach that we're taking is we don't use the word NFT. I try not to use any crypto jargon whatsoever, and I think it's just useless and dumb, quite honestly. I think especially as, like, the number of the Web3 devs are decreasing, and people, we're not going to outspend Monad. Like, we're not going to outspend these grant farming L1s. Not to say Monad is, I didn't mean that. But, like, there are grant farming L1s. We're not going to outspend them. But we do see a lot of success in Web 2, and so it's like, hey, maybe instead of calling it an ERC 721, we call it an asset. And there's, like, very easy things that we can do that make it an accessible industry for even as, from developers and users. It's just some of these things that for some reason it's like, guys, what the fuck are we doing? Why are we calling it this? It's like, make it simple. That's it. And we've seen a lot of success with this, and we've seen, like, the EarnOS team is probably a good example, and we could probably go into that, but these guys are ex-Uber, ex-real people, not crypto. And they came into this industry, and we found each other effectively just like, it was like a match made in heaven, and they've been on the rails since, but it's like, if you want to talk to Web2 devs, you can't be saying this jargon. It won't work, it doesn't work, and it's like, it's slow, it's friction. It's the same reason that we don't have any users.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like you want to keep using these jargons because they're a badge of kind of that you're kind of proud that you've been in the industry for long enough to understand them, or you don't approach it from that mindset? Because I sometimes feel, I don't know, just this feeling of pride. I've been in the industry for 5 years now, and when I talk to my Web3 friends, we can talk about NFTs and we can talk about consensus mechanisms, and people can't really understand what we're talking about. So just giving away this power is
but it's good to give it away. You know what it is? It's like, if we want this industry to grow and we want it to be serious, we really need to let more people in, right? And it's like, this industry is actually about taking down barriers of entry. So who are we to then create barriers of entry?
Great.
And I think that I think it's a sense of, like, us versus them that doesn't need to exist anymore. Like, I do think that it did a little while ago. It was much harder to build in this industry. It was much more difficult, and unfortunately, people that came in were just used as exit liquidity. And we're getting past that point now. I genuinely do believe, where the industry is maturing. You look at fundraisers now. It's like, you need users. You didn't need users back in 2018. You just needed a white paper. And so it's, the industry's growing, and that's good, and I'm very happy about that. I'm very excited about that. But, I think what comes with that is this pivotal moment of now we need users, right?
Yeah. And you said that you refrain from using terms like NFTs. How do you refer to non-fungible assets, or do you just call them what they are? So if it's like a ticket that's in the NFT form, you just call it a concert ticket.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
That's it. That's all it needs to be. If it's art, it's art. If it's a song, it's a song.
And how do you explain that to people, and are they open to explore that? Because explore the concept of full ownership, because I think it's quite foreign to a lot of people, and B, if it's a little bit harder than using the current system, people are less likely to adopt it. Have you faced this same challenges like replies, or not really? People
not really. It's, if employ anyone listening to use the platform, but you sign in with your Gmail, everything is denominated in dollars, there is no jargon. It is very easy, and very soon everything will be used with credit card and debit card, so it's going to get even easier.
And I guess my question was, like, how do you incentivize companies or people to transition from the Web 2 to Web 3 if we don't use terms like NFTs, or explain the benefits of actually owning your tickets? And you refer to them as concert tickets? My initial question will be, why the hell would I be changing something that's currently working then?
Yeah. Have you ever been scammed out of a concert ticket before?
Yeah.
There you go.
Good point. That's true. I guess, and it's also a lot easier to transfer it, because I hate it when I buy flight tickets and then I can't do anything with them, because I kind of own them, but the company has them, so I can't really transfer them. So do I really own them? I always have these conversations with my parents.
And there's always, like, there's always, you see the benefit in extremities, right? Which is, you look at some of these Web 2 artists who had their work posted on Facebook, and then it got turned into training models for AI, and then they just didn't get paid. right? And then the things like getting scammed out of a concert ticket, or, if you ever have to cancel a flight or something, right? So the real, like, it's the tip of the iceberg are always the extremities. But as time progresses and things go on, for the first time ever, we're putting property, like genuine property, online, which has never existed before. And I dramatically compare it to the Industrial Revolution, where a big part of the Industrial Revolution was the ability to have intellectual property, because then people could make, people could then make companies and without fear of being kind of sued, or, they could sue. And once you had intellectual property and you had the ability to kind of do this and say, no, this is mine, you had this incredible spur. And now we're taking that aspect of saying, oh, you own intellectual property, and we're bringing it to everything. Like, everything. It is intellectual property. It is physical property, real estate. It is monetary, right? It is everything. And so it's the ability to spur. Once we get these network effects in, it will be the next industrial revolution.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I want to talk a little bit more about the projects that are building on top of XION. I know that you have over 200 projects, and some of the biggest companies in the world are collaborating with you, like Uber, Prime, BMW. Can you tell me a bit more about how they're using the blockchain, but also how did you manage to secure these partnerships?
By making crypto disappear, hilariously. Like, it is a lot easier than you think when you can actually provide a company a value that they want, right? When we say to Uber, hey, we can vampire attack Lyft, and we're not saying it directly, but it's like, hey, we'll literally pay you, we'll pay Lyft drivers to switch over to Uber. Uber's like, what are you talking about? Like, no, we can do this. It's just like, how? It's like, because we can. Like, I don't think that they know that they're interacting with crypto, and they shouldn't need to, right? Because there's such a bad stigma around crypto. There's such an unnecessary aspect around crypto. But if you can provide these benefits, like saying, like ZKTLS is like a great example, which is like another jargony word, yes. But a lot of it is just saying we're using the APIs that Web2 companies use to create moats as effectively a vampire attacking mechanism. And so, yes, we can use it. Yes, this is real, and this is something that you want. And we have about 150 brands that we work with who seem to agree, so I think we're doing something right.
Yeah, and can you just tell me a bit more about like the technical details of how are you actually achieving that?
With ZKTLS, or which aspect?
Yeah, the ZKTLS.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it depends.
overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the thing about crypto is I love the interoperability aspect, right? So it's, I'm never going to be the person who's going to sit here and be like, this is completely us, we are 100% us. Like, a lot of it is like you're working with Eigenlayer, and there's I'll name two really, really good ZKTLS companies, which is Opacity and Reclaim. And these guys are absolute killers, and what they do and working with them and being able to provide this information is absolutely amazing. And so it's like, it definitely, I think the beauty about this entire industry is that it takes a village. And so we have a lot of great partners that we work with, and some of these times it's like it doesn't really matter how many. It's like we just want to provide the solutions for the end user.
And I also want to talk about your users, because you have over 4 million meta accounts, so essentially accounts on XION.
Yeah.
How did you manage to have this many users, and how do you incentivize them to become users?
It's a great question. I mean, I think, even as you look, we have about 100,000 daily active users right now. Right, and so that's actually the 4 million is an outdated number. I don't know the exact number right now, but it is much more than 4. And it's products and it's things. It's, if you don't need to have a 30-minute onboarding process, it's actually insane how easy it is to use something. And I remember like back in the day when we had 30,000 daily active users on the NFT marketplace. That was really fucking high. That was the highest in the industry. One of the highest in the industries. And because it was just, we had the market share of Phantom at the time. We were the only ones who kind of had an NFT marketplace at the time. But regardless, like, we had the largest majority of the entire market cap that we possibly could have. But right now, looking at 100,000 daily active users, that's nothing. because the comp is people who have a Gmail, and that is what I would only imagine at least billions. So it's
Yeah, the
easy, right?
dream.
Like my parents can use it for the first time, my grandparents can use it for the first time, and we've done what we've sought out to do.
Yeah, talking about the billions, the ultimate dream of onboarding the 1 billion users. So, what's your prediction? How long do you think it would take the industry to onboard that magical for us number?
I think we'll do it by next year.
Next year.
I think so. I think
That's very optimistic.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I know that our internal KPIs is I want 5 projects with 100,000 daily active users by the end of the year, and I don't think that's very difficult. Because I know one of our projects on OS already has about 1 million users. So I think it's just making it easy. I think we found proverbially gold, and we got very fortunate. But we built for ourselves and we built for the products and understanding what they want, and we kind of solved this cold start problem of there's no products because there's no users, and there's no users because there's no products. So I think the proverbial billion users will come very quickly because it's just going to be the internet, and there's already that many people on the internet. So just getting, even if we got, I mean, I think that 1 billion will come next year.
That's good. I love that. You also mentioned Zion is MiCA compliant now.
Yes.
Can you please tell me the benefits of it, but also tell me a bit more about the process, because I know that it involved a lot of lawyers and long documents and probably long hours and calls. So
yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of lawyers. We'll say a lot of lawyers. In both European Council and American Council, we worked with a lot of councils. And the idea was, we published a MiCA white paper, and we worked with a bunch of lawyers to just try to be as compliant as possible. It's a process, and I think a lot of it is very symbolic of, we want to take the steps to be compliant. We've taken the steps to be compliant, and whatever they may be, it's going to be exciting, as we kind of move forward, and whatever kind of gets thrown at us, we're excited to try and do and be as compliant as possible. But I think for the first time that we've actually seen regulation coming in, and I think being an American company that never left, we're really excited to never ever need to leave.
I like that. By the way, I just realized that most of the interviews that I've listened and watched with you were recorded with you being in the office.
Yeah.
So I would love to know how many times do you go to the office, and how much time do you spend there?
The better question is how much time do I spend at home? That would be oh God, all of the time. It's it's funny, my apartment is actually literally right across the street for that very reason of this is the only thing that I do.
Oh wow. How big is the team?
Team is about 20 now. We still stay lean, we still stay but we're growing.
Nice. And what's the focus there? How many developers do you have, and how many people focusing on everything else like marketing?
Yeah, I think it's 16 developers and then the rest.
Yeah, nice. And tell me a bit more about your role within this entire organization, because I'm sure that managing 20 different people, 16 developers, they're most likely more technical than you. I'm not sure, actually. I'm not
yes,
sure.
They are. And that's why. They are much smarter than me, which is great.
I'm not sure smarter, but definitely more technical, probably.
But
yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing team, and I will say that I would not be able to do it without our CTO, Ash, and Burnt Fondue, who handles everything else on the other side. But it's a team, right? Like, and it's being surrounded by amazing people. And I wish that I could say that I did it all myself. It would make me feel really good if I could say that I did it all myself. But I didn't. I'm surrounded by amazing people who are better than me in a lot of ways, and I love that.
And what are the main lessons that you have extracted throughout the years of running Zion?
Oh God. Never give up is maybe like, I know it's a dumb one. It's a really dumb one. But it's like, I hate people who have. You know what? Put all of your eggs in that basket. That's what I have to say. And don't stop because all your eggs are in that one basket. There's no like. Especially it depends on your age, but like, don't hedge. Win, like win and make sure you win. Because focus is a hard thing to master, and especially focusing on many things at once. Like, I've realized that even in running this, just even learning, I know everything I think I know everything I can about crypto, but I know nothing else. And that's good. I'm okay with that because all of my eggs are in crypto, and I don't plan on being anywhere else. And so it's pretty self-fulfilling. But in that regard, you kind of can't give up either, right? And we have this joke. Within the company, which is like, this has to work out because otherwise we're all fucked.
Yeah, it's funny because actually Alexander the Great did that in real life. They went into a battle and he burned all the ships.
Yep.
So he was like, guys, you have
This is
only
it.
one option
This is
here.
all
You
we
have
got.
to
Yeah.
win or,
Yeah.
or we're all dead.
Burn the
Like,
ships. Always burn the
you're
ships.
done. That's nice. Can you tell me a bit more design token and its main function, and how did you guys think about the tokenomics at the time, but also how did they develop throughout the years? Because I know that you can stake it and you have voting power, but what other functions does it have within your ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of it is underpinning how everything works, right? It's the way that we can take payment in Ethereum, we could take payment in USDC, we could take payment in credit cards. It's because it all settles to Zion, right? And then a lot of that is kind of part of our proof of abstraction, right? Where I say, take the fees in ETH or USDC, buy back and burn Zion, and be able to kind of work in that capacity to be multi-chain, but it's still kind of coming all back to the same place and being able to, work in that capacity. But then the kind of the proof of abstraction, which is in that nature of revenue fees and things like that, that which isn't burned, right, comes from the community pool, then gets brought into going back to other projects and being able to grow the ecosystem. And we're excited for a couple more things that we're going to announce, but I unfortunately I cannot actually announce that right now because I will get yelled at. But there is going to be an update to the tokenomics that will be interesting, and I think will make a lot of people very, very happy. Of course, it will change. It always will change. And I think that as everything that we do is an experiment, and we try it. It works. Some things don't work, and we fix those things that don't work. But it's changed definitely a lot. I remember first starting out back in probably started 2022, like January 2022, as the first and only USDC chain, and so the tokenomics looked a lot different back then. And as things grew, and we've learned a lot, and things have grown, it's become the behemoth that it is now, and we're very excited.
And I just realized that my name is just a crypto bro here, and yours Born Banksy, which is amazing because I know that you are not doxed for around 2 years.
Yep.
So tell me a bit more about that transition from being the kid in the darkness to being the face of a company.
I don't like it. I really don't. I think that I was the face as Burnt Banksy. I think and I think like a lot of the reason that I wanted to be Burnt Banksy was because I don't really care. I don't really want I want it to be on Zion. I want it to be what we're building. And I like the name Burnt Banksy. It was fun. But I liked being anonymous a lot. And so it does suck to not be anonymous, I will say. But I do think that for what we're building, I understand that it is important, especially in trust. I get that there's an element of trust that comes into it. But it's if I could hide my face forever, I would, because I don't think it's very
Really?
Yeah,
What do you
totally.
think
Yeah,
are
totally.
the benefits of being anonymous
What are the benefits?
for you? Why do you
Um,
prefer it over being the face of the company? I feel like nowadays everyone wants to be famous or
I don't want
wants
to be famous. I want to build something really cool that lasts a long time, that helps people. I could not give less of a shit about being famous.
Yeah, that's a good take on it. But do you think there are any other benefits to being anonymous, or is it just the fact that you want to have your own privacy and
Well, I think it depends on what you're building. And I will also say, like, it also depends, like, the time was different. Like, regulation was really scary.
mm,
And so it's like, you know who Brad Garlinghouse is, and Brad Garlinghouse was kind of like the front of the SEC, right? And so it's
yeah,
like, and I think as regulation and everything got a lot better, like, I felt more comfortable kind of being able to come out. But it was like, especially after the burnt Banksy, like, I didn't know if that was fully legal. And so it was like being, you can't really sue a burnt Banksy, but you can sue an Anthony. Now you have a person here, right? And so it is exciting, kind of now. Like, I get it. I get why I need to do this. And I have a message that I want to spread, so I'm okay with it. But I think the benefit of being anonymous, I will say one of the negatives is I was wearing a mask and it was really fucking hot in that mask.
yeah. I've seen some of your alternative outfits, normally like involving a hoodie. So
Yeah.
how do you feel about it? People normally comment on it. I was listening to an interview with you and two guys interviewing you, and they kept commenting on your outfit, and you were like, "Would you stop asking stupid questions?" And I was
I
like,
love
"Whoa,
that interview. I have not been invited back to speak at the roll up because of that, and it upsets me a lot because I like Andy as a person.
oh really?"
Yeah,
Because of that comment.
because no, the whole interview. The whole
Okay.
interview.
It's funny because I listened to it and I was like, oh my days, the guy has balls. And then I was like, it would be a challenging interview. And then I listened to a few other interviews and I was like, oh my days, he's actually a nice guy. He was just having a bad day or
I was
something.
just
I don't
having
know.
fun, dude. That was what it was. I was just having fun.
Yeah.
As well.
Um, a final one. What are the kind of things that you would like to achieve this year for Zion, but also on a personal level? Do you normally set goals at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the, like I mentioned earlier, like 5 projects with 100,000 daily active users. I think we're gonna have an ecosystem fund. I think that'll be huge. I think just being able to deploy capital into projects that build on us, and really expediting that process will be very, very beneficial for us. I think it's really, really important, and I think we're gonna grow the team. Like, the team will probably double, but we want to make sure that we do that in a lean capacity. Right. So it's like, for us, it's making sure that if we need to hire 2 people, we're hiring one, but making sure we get to that point. And I think I like the Apple approach there, where I've seen a lot of really, really fat teams, and that just ends up being the death of a project. And I think, especially in an industry with this much capital flowing around, it ends up being dangerous. Like, you look at some of the projects that do the best. Like, Solana raised the least out of all of the major L1s at the time, and look at where they are now. And I do think that there is a benefit in not having an insane amount of money, and treating yourself like a very, very lean team, because you're going to make the right decisions. Otherwise, you're just throwing money at the wall, and you have money and you think you have it forever. And 4-year plan in 1999 ended later that year, right? So some of this shit will come crashing down soon. You just got to be prepared. You got to be ready, and we got to build for the future.
And on the point of expanding the team, the job titles are quite interesting because I was going through your Twitter account and one of them was like a cult leader, and I was like, oh my
Absolutely.
days, what does that involve?
Absolutely.
What does the job entail?
Yeah, we will listen. The community is a cult. We are running a cult. Like, the community is a cult. And honestly, it's exhausting. It's very difficult to lead it by myself, I will say. And so, looking for someone charismatic, ability to make people drink Kool-Aid, could be poison, could be not, who knows. But, someone charismatic to help me run the cult. If we need to attack people, then we're going to have to do that, and it's okay.
Whatever's required, yeah?
Whatever, by any means necessary.
I love that. And tell me a bit more about your personal goals.
I'd like to bench 225.
Is that actually true? Is that pounds or
Pounds.
kg?
Yeah, pounds.
Okay.
Kg would be crazy.
Yeah, because I was like, whoa, that's a really
That
high
would be
goal.
crazy.
What's that in kg?
I think that what is that in kg? Like 112ish.
Okay, that's still really good. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. I might be
That's
so wrong.
100k, 102.
102. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. What's your current bench press?
What is my current bench press? It is. I'm trying to do this into. Let's do this into. Oh God, what is it? I've actually taken the month off of being lifting because I got sick after Eat Denver, so I'd have to do my my PR again.
Okay. What else do you have on the list?
What else do I have on the list? I would say 5 projects with 100,000.
That's on the top of the list.
Yeah,
Personal and professional
that is
list.
personal and professional.
I love that.
Yeah.
Nice. That was an absolute blast. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you. You asked a lot of very awesome questions, I think. And I think very rarely you kind of get like into the emotional aspect of things, which I appreciate. I think this is a very exciting podcast.
Thank you. That means a lot.